Well, if you look at it through the lens, for example, of some of the larger startups in Southeast Asia, the Grabs and Gojeks and these kinds of companies, they grew very, very quickly, right? And at that time when capital was cheap, that was really the marching orders, was just, raise as much money as you can and grow as quickly as you can. And maybe that was the right thing to do at the time, but what got lost in that was attention really to the quality of the organization. And I do see some distinguishing characteristics of the challenges that companies here face. And the fact is that most of the markets in Southeast Asia are fairly small, Singapore in particular, and that leads companies to expand internationally much earlier in their journey than they would if they were, for example, in the US. I would say that typically companies reach maybe $200 million in revenues in the US before they start thinking about expanding overseas. That's almost impossible in Singapore. And that leads to a lot of organizational complexity. You have these small companies, they're still figuring out how things operate, they're still a bit immature, but they're operating in 5 or 6 countries. The second thing about Southeast Asia is that, of course, these countries are very heterogeneous. They're at very different levels of economic development, different levels of infrastructure, they have different languages, different cultures. And so operating across Vietnam and Thailand and Philippines and Malaysia and Indonesia and Singapore is really, really challenging. It's not just France and Germany, right? So I think that they're right to try and do it because they have to in order to expand regionally. But I think a lot of times leaders underestimate just how much complexity is involved in that challenge.